everyone, I am Dr. Deepika Malik and today's topic of discussion is a very important topic of downstream processing of industrial fermentations. Downstream processing refers to the recovery and the purification of products from the fermentation broth after the completion of fermentation. It involves all unit operations after fermentation that improve the purity of the final product. The various stages of processing that occur after the completion of the fermentation includes separation, purification and packaging of the product. Recovery costs of the microbial product may vary from 15 to 70% of total production cost. Purification of fermentation products may be difficult and costly. Now the choice of recovery process is based on the following criteria. First is the location of the product, that is the product formed after fermentation is intracellular, that is inside the cell, or extracellular, that is the product is excreted out by the microbial cells into the fermentation broth. Other criteria includes concentration of the product in the fermentation broth, physical and chemical properties of the desired product, intended use of the product, minimal acceptable standard of purity, marketable price of the product, magnitude of biohazard of the product of fermentation broth, and impurities in the fermentation broth. The next slide shows a flow chart depicting different steps in downstream processing of fermentation broth. In case of intracellular products, the first phase is cell disruption. After that, the next step is stage 1, which is solid-liquid separation. This is also the first step in case of product recovery of an extracellular product. Stage 2 includes the concentration, stage 3 includes purification, and stage 4 includes drying and packaging. Now all these stage 1, 2, 3 and 4 are common for both intracellular and extracellular product recovery and purification. Now let us discuss the phase 1 in case of release of intracellular products. If the desired product is an intracellular metabolite, it must be released from the cells using cell disruption methods before subjecting to solid-liquid separation. There are several biotechnological products like vitamins and enzymes which are located within the cells. Such compounds have to be first released maximally and in an active form for the further processing and final isolation. Any potential method of disruption must ensure that labile materials are not denatured by the process or hydrolyzed by enzymes present in the cell. Labile materials are materials which get easily altered. Now methods for microbial cell disruption available fall into 4 major categories. First is the physical methods, which includes freeze thawing or osmotic shock. Second are the chemical methods, which includes treatment with detergents, solvents or alkali treatment. Third includes mechanical methods like liquid shear or homogenization, solid shear, agitation with abrasives or ultrasonication. And biological methods includes enzymes and phage. Now we'll discuss all these methods one by one in detail. Physical methods. First method is the freeze thawing. The technique involves freezing a cell suspension in a freezer and then thawing the material at room temperature or 37 degrees Celsius. Thawing is the process of frozen substance like ice becoming liquid as a result of warming up. This method of lysis causes cells to swell due to melting of ice crystals and ultimately break. Multiple cycles are necessary for efficient release of the intracellular materials. Next method under physical treatment includes osmotic shock. Osmotic pressure results from a difference in solute concentration across a semi-permeable membrane. If a cell is placed in a hypertonic solution, it causes its shrinkage. If it is placed in an isotonic solution, an equilibrium is maintained, and in case of hypertonic solution, the cells swell and burst out. You can also see the diagrammatic representation of all these 3 terms. Cell membranes are semi-permeable, and suddenly transferring a cell from an isotonic medium to distilled water, which is hypertonic, would result in a rapid influx of water into the cell. This would result in the rapid expansion in cell volume followed by its rupture. There are certain limitations of this method, that is, it requires enzymatic pretreatment to weaken the cells. Also, the product may be diluted, which increases downstream processing costs. Now, the second category includes the mechanical methods, and here we discuss liquid shear. Liquid-based homogenization is the most widely used cell disruption technique for small volumes and cultured cells. Cells are lysed by forcing the cell or tissue suspension through a narrow space known as clearance space, which is 0.001 mm to 0.006 mm, thereby shearing or breaking the cell membrane. Two different types of homogenizers are in common use. First is a Downs homogenizer, which consists of a round glass pestle that is manually driven into a glass tube, as you can see in the first diagram on the right side. The second type includes Potter-Elvejum homogenizer, which consists of a manually or mechanically driven Teflon pestle shaped to fit a rounded or conical tube. As you can see in the diagram, in case of Potter-Elvejum homogenizer, the pestle is fitted with a Teflon base, as you can see a white colored Teflon base in the diagram. This Teflon base containing pestle can be driven manually or by a motor. The number of strokes, that is the movement of pestle inside and out of the glass tube, and the speed at which the strokes are administered influences the effectiveness of homogenization methods. Both homogenizers can be obtained in a variety of sizes to accommodate a range of volumes. Now the next method is the solid shear method. Here the microorganisms are first frozen at -25 degrees Celsius. The frozen microbes are then passed through a narrow orifice by applying pressure. In this method, cells are disrupted due to combination of liquid shear and presence of ice crystals. The operating temperature can be further lowered down to -35 degrees Celsius. About 90% of the cell disruption can be achieved successfully in a single pass. So the main difference between the liquid and solid shear is that in case of solid shear, the cells are first frozen and then treated. Next method is the ultrasonication. Ultrasonic vibrations, that is having frequency greater than 18 kHz, can be used to disrupt cells. The cells are subjected to ultrasonic vibrations by introducing an ultrasonic vibrating emitting tip into the cell suspension. These high frequency vibrations cause cavitations, that is the formation of tiny bubbles within the liquid medium. When these bubbles reach resonance size, they collapse, releasing mechanical energy in the form of shock waves equivalent to several thousand atmospheres of pressure. The shock waves disrupt cells present in the suspension. As you can see in the diagram, the ultrasound generator generates ultrasonic vibrations which are passed into the cell suspension using the ultrasound tip. Next is the agitation with abrasives or beads. It is carried out in a disintegrator containing a series of rotating discs and small beads. The beads are made up of mechanically resistant materials like glass, alumina, ceramics, and some titanium compounds. Up to 85% of cell disruption can be achieved by this method. Major problem associated with this method is heat generation, which can be overcome by the use of cooling equipments or jackets around the disintegrator, or by adding a little liquid nitrogen into the vessel, which can be termed as cryogenic bead milling. Next method includes the use of mortar and pestle. It is a manual grinding method most commonly used to disrupt plant cells. In this method, tissue is frozen in liquid nitrogen and then crushed using a mortar and pestle. Because of tensile strength of the cellulose and other polysaccharides comprising the cell wall, this method is the fastest and most efficient way to assess plant protein and DNA. Now the third category includes the chemical methods. First is the treatment with detergents. Detergents disrupt the structure of cell membranes by solubilizing their phospholipids, disrupting lipid-lipid, lipid-protein and protein-protein interactions, which lead to release of intracellular content. Many proteins will be denatured in lysis process, which is a disadvantage of detergents in cell lysis. They may also disturb subsequent downstream processing steps. Thus, additional purification step may be required after cell lysis, which limits their utilization in large-scale processes. However, detergents are commonly used for cell lysis in laboratory. For example, once DNA, RNA, or proteins are extracted from cells. The diagram shows the interaction of detergents with cell membrane compounds which lead to disassembly of cell membrane and release of intracellular products like DNA. Now, detergents can be classified into two main categories as ionic or non-ionic. Ionic further includes two categories, that is cationic or anionic detergents. Cationic detergents like ethyl trimethyl ammonium bromide can act on cell membrane lipopolysaccharides and phospholipids. Anionic detergents like sodium dodecyl sulfate reorganizes cell membrane by disrupting protein-protein interactions. Whereas non-ionic detergents cause the least amount of damage to sensitive biological molecules such as proteins and DNA. These include Triton X100, which solubilizes membrane proteins, CHAPS or 3,3-cholamidopropyl dimethyl ammonio 1-propane sulfonate. It is a zwitterionic detergent, that is a molecule with functional groups of which at least one has a positive and one has a negative electrical charge, and the net charge of the entire molecule is zero. Another example of non-ionic detergent is Tween series like Tween 20 or Tween 80. Next method includes treatment with solvents. Chemical solvents can be utilized for lysis of cells using antibiotics, surfactants, chiotropic agents and chelates. Chiotropic agents act by disrupting the structure and denaturing the proteins of the cell, whereas chelates sets apart metal ions from the outer membrane of the cells, resulting in lipopolysaccharide and protein dissociation, leading to cell lysis. Organic solvents like dimethyl sulfoxide, toluene, ether, benzene, methanol, phenyl ethyl alcohol, EDTA, etc. are used to lyse the cell. These solvents extract or solubilize lipid components from cell wall and denature its proteins, which leads to release of intracellular components. EDTA or ethylene diamine tetraacetic acid is used along with enzymes to rupture gram-negative cell wall. It destabilizes the lipopolysaccharide layer that are stabilized by cations like calcium, magnesium, etc. EDTA also acts as a chelating agent which captures metal ions, leaving holes in cell wall. Some solvents like toluene are known to disrupt fungal cell walls. Solvents can be used with wide range of production organisms, but some proteins can be denatured, which limits its use. The limitation of using organic solvents are similar to those with detergents, that is the need to remove these from products and the denaturation of proteins. However, organic solvents on account of their volatility are easier to remove than detergents. Next includes alkali treatment. The method is fast, reliable and relatively clean way to isolate DNA from cells. It can be used for both laboratory and industrial scale. It is most common for plasmid DNA isolation. However, prolonged exposure of disrupted cells at high pH may denature the proteins or make the product unstable. Sodium hydroxide is used in nucleic acid extraction, which solubilizes the phospholipid and protein component of the cell membrane. Alkali is also used for hydrolysis of microbial cell wall material, provided that the desired enzyme will tolerate a pH of 10.5 to 12.5 for 20 to 30 minutes. Limitation includes that chemical costs for neutralization are high. Now the last category includes biological methods. Let us first discuss enzymes. The use of enzymatic methods to remove cell wall is well established for preparing cells for disruption or for preparation of protoplasts, that is cells without cell walls. The enzymes are originally isolated from biological sources. The enzymes commonly used include lysozyme, lysostaphin, zymolase, cellulase, mutanolysin, glycanases, proteases, manases, etc. Lysozyme, an egg-based enzyme, lyses bacterial cell walls, mainly those of the gram-positive type. Lysozyme on its own cannot disrupt bacterial cells since it does not lyse the cell membrane. The combination of lysozyme and a detergent is frequently used. Lysozyme is also used in combination with osmotic shock or mechanical cell disruption methods. The main limitation of using lysozyme is its high cost. Other problems include the need for removing lysozyme from the product and the presence of other enzymes such as proteases in lysozyme samples. Another method includes the use of phage. Viruses that lyse bacterial cells, that is lytic phage, are commonly used for cell disruption. As you can see in the diagram, the phage gets adsorbed over the bacterial cell, enters into the cell and starts multiplying. After multiplication, it causes lysis of bacterial cells.